Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you yet again another ThunderCats episode review right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. As always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's ThunderCats episode reviews. So, this is Season 1, Episode 12, entitled Into the Astral Plane, and I must say, I highly enjoyed this week's episode. Why? Because we're finally back into the canon material. We are finally back into the plot-heavy, plot-driven material. So, just a brief little recap of what occurred in this week's episode. In this week's episode, Lion-O and the team, they head back to the village with the elephant monks. Why? Because they discover that the stone in which they're looking for is in that village. However, it's hidden inside of the astral plane. And what the astral plane is the spiritual plane, the spiritual realm. The doorway to which is in a hut in said village. So, of course, they had to go back to the village only to run into Grune and some of his lizard forces. And so, of course, they have to encounter them. They have to fend off that attack. And this week's episode closes with Lion-O and Tigra entering the astral plane to get the stone, only to have Mumm-ra disguised as a crow fly in right behind them. So next week's episode, well, before I get into what I expect for next week's episode, let me also mention another thing that's been going on in this week's episode. Throughout the entire episode, we have been seeing more and more signs of Tigra's jealousy. And if you all will recall my review from last week, I mentioned that was one of my favorite parts of last week's episode, was the fact that they were actually beginning to kind of elaborate on that whole thing. Tigra's relationship with Lion-O, the little love triangle that is developing between, or it was developing rather, between Lion-O, Chitara, and Tigra. All of which, like I said, the jealousy thing, the love triangle, all of that we got hints to in last week's episode. And I mentioned that I was hoping that they would expand on that as the series went along. They have. They did it in this episode, because we saw, not only did we see Tigra display, signs of jealousy, we saw flashbacks to when he first met Chitara when they were kids, and then we got a warning at the end of this week's episode when the head elder of the elephant monks, he told Lion-O that he had a premonition that his brother, he will experience betrayal like he's never experienced before, and it will come from his brother. And he said this to Lion-O right before Lion-O entered the astral plane after Tigra. Tigra went first, Lion-O followed, and he was told that right before. And I gotta say, I like that, because throughout this entire episode, when Tigra kept, spouting off on that shit, I was like, oh my god, it would be so awesome if they turned Tigra into a villain. If Tigra betrayed the ThunderCats and became a villain, it would be so fucking cool. And who knows, it might happen, because we got that, and we know that. Okay, here's another thing. After the elder said that, I was kind of like, well, how exactly is that supposed to happen? Like, especially since Lion-O since he suspects it now, how is it that Tigra's going to be able to betray Lion-O like that? And then that's when we got the scene with Mumm-ra flying into the astral plane. So what I'm hoping for next week's episode is that Tigra and Lion-O will be forced to fight Mumm-ra in the astral plane, and Tigra betrays Lion-O, takes the stone, and either keeps it for him. I really want Tigra to keep that stone for himself. I don't want him to betray Lion-O just to give the stone over to Mumm-ra. I want Tigra to keep the stone for himself. To be more specific of what I really want, I would love if by some way, shape, or form they managed, the writers, I mean, when I say they, if the writers managed to give Tigra, like, you know, a sword, much like how Mumm-ra had one and how Lion-O has one, like if he got a sword and he used the stone that they're looking for now to power his sword so that it could rival both Mumm-ra and Lion-O, and Tigra would become a third party, like a third party type villain for the series. I would love for that to happen. Why? Because, okay, I know that that's breaking the, you know, the traditional parameters of this series. It's like, okay, Larry, yeah, you know, the ThunderCats and we know the team and all that jazz. But let's face it, Tigra is the one character on that team who is out of place. Tigra does not have a place on that team. Not really. You have Lion-O, who's the leader. You know, he got the Sword of Omens. He's the big bad booty daddy. You got Chitara, who's the cleric, who's the love interest, okay? You got Panthro, who's he's the eldest of the team. He's the one with the most experience. He's the mechanic. He's the technical guy, okay? You know, he's the muscle. Then you got Wily Kit and Wily Cat and Snarf, all of which are the cute comic relief. Where does Tigra fit in? Is Tigra supposed to be a rival? If so, he hasn't really been doing a good job of that. Why? Because if Tigra was really if Tigra was serving the purpose of Lion-O's rival in the story, then Tigra would be able to do the same shit that Lion-O does and do it better. Thus, the purpose of a rivalry. You don't make a rivalry between two characters when one character clearly has the upper hand over the other. That's not a rivalry. To refer to what I'm talking about, go back to Pokemon. Ash and Gary had a rivalry. Why? Because even though Gary would usually it would seem as if Gary would always best Ash, Ash still opposed to be a threat. He posed a threat to Gary. That's what made them rivals. In Dragon Ball Z, Goku and Vegeta, throughout the entire fucking series, Goku was stronger than Vegeta. But what made it a rivalry? Because there was always that threat that Vegeta could surpass Goku. At one point, he did surpass Goku. In the Cell Saga, right before Goku and Gohan went into the hyperbolic time chamber, he actually was stronger than Goku at that point. Then, of course, Goku was dealing with a virus. But you get my point. There has to be some type of threat being posed by the person who's supposed to be a rival. So Tigra isn't the rival. Is he the big brother figure? No. Why? Because he doesn't act like a big brother towards Lion-O. He doesn't give Lion-O advice. He doesn't protect Lion-O like a big brother should. He doesn't really push Lion-O like a big brother should. We haven't seen Tigra act like the big brother since like the first 3 episodes. Yeah, in the first episode he did. Like, he was acting like the big brother. He saved Lion-O's ass, challenged him in the fucking, in the race. You know, yeah. But he hasn't done that yet. Also, it would make for a nice archetype, you know, the whole story of the 2 brothers who are enemies type bit. It would work. It would work. I'm just saying, I would like to see that. I'm just saying, I would like to see that. But with that said, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this review for me. Like I said, it was a really good episode. Especially, oh man, Wily Kit. That's my hero for this week's episode, man. Cause she did the damn thing, man. Even though that led to that put the rest of the team in a kind of tight spot. You know, she put her foot down. She's like, you ain't fucking with my friends. I dig that. I dig that. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me. What can you expect to see from me later this weekend? Tomorrow, I will either post 1 or 2 video responses, because there have been a few videos on YouTube that's been popping up like in the past week that I want to do video responses to. So 1 or 2 or shit, maybe even 3. However I decide to do those videos most likely will be out tomorrow night or early Sunday morning. And then of course Sunday Boardwalk Empire review. But with that said, this is Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off, and until next time, peace.